Hey folks, Quilly18 here, and welcome to another Unity 3D tutorial on how to make a first-person shooter multiplayer game. And we are working on our sort of sniper rifle-y kind of visual effect. So, I've been giving it some thought, and what I think I want to do for our visual is, let's open up Paint, ha 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 ha, is I want, out of the gun, I want to create a sort of line that's just fleeting. That's almost not visible, right? Again, it'll give that Hollywood sense of like the air distortion, just a little bit of a faint gray line that you can just barely see in the air. And I also want to create a little bit of smoke that comes out of this. In fact, I'm trying to decide what is more realistic. Just make one puff of smoke like this that sort of fades up. You want to like almost move a particle system for a sec, like smear it out like that, so you get sort of a pew, like that. Would that make sense? I mean, the question is both what is most realistic and what looks better, and what gives the best indication of what we're trying to do in the game, which is to give a sense that someone just shot. We want to know where they shot from and where they're shooting to. We could throw out a little bit of sparks, because apparently like every gun in every game has like a huge burst of flames that comes out. This drawing is possibly the least comprehensible thing I've ever made here. Let's start slow, and we'll build up the effect as much as possible. So let's talk about this line. There's a couple of different ways to do this. One is we can actually create a mesh of like, we could use like a cylinder. It doesn't have to be a very like detailed cylinder. It can be like 8-sided that stretches out. And what you can do is you can scale the cylinder based on the distance, right? So imagine you go into Blender and you make a cylinder that has a unit length of 1. And then in Unity, when you set up the shot, this is the origin of the cylinder, and you line that up with the barrel of the gun where the shot comes out of, which right now is still the camera, the player camera. We're going to have to tweak that, but for now that's going to be good enough. So we have the shot that comes out there, and then what you do is you know the distance to the opponent. Like, oh, we hit something that is 57.5 units away, so you scale this 1 unit long object by 57.5 in the, say, z-axis, whatever it is. That is one way of doing it. And that could work for depending on what effect you're trying to go for. That might be awesome. Then we'd have to mess around with materials and such a little bit more. So we're going to use, instead, we're going to use the built-in line renderer in Unity. So let's go and let's zoom in just somewhere arbitrarily over here, and we're going to create a new object. And this is going to be my sniper bullet FX object, and this is what we're going to spawn when we shoot. Now, this thing can contain numerous things. In fact, we will. My base object, I will have it not do anything. But then I will create, let me just make sure we're focused on that. I will create 2 more objects inside of it. So, first thing, well, we're at 0, 0, 0, awesome. Let's duplicate this. The first bit here, this is going to be my sort of like line effects. Okay, and then the second thing is going to be some sort of like particle system. Actually, it's going to be particle systems, because we'll probably do some sort of fiery, sparky kind of thing, and also smoke. So both of those are going to be inside of my sniper bullet effects. All right, so the line effects is going to have on it a line renderer. So line renderer is very cool. Well, it makes a line. Well, that's pretty informative. So right now it's got a 1 unit long line. Let's zoom in here. There you go. You can see these line effects over here. There's some sort of object going on. And right now it goes from 0, 0, 0 to 0, 0, 1. Now let me go ahead and make that a little bit longer to make it a little bit more obvious. There we go. And we're going in the Z direction, which is going to be perfectly fine. Now I'm going to say, oh, well, obviously I don't want it down there. So let me grab this object here and move it up. What's going on? Let's zero it out again. Okay, so it's there, and then let's move it up 10 units. What's going on? Well, what's going on is this line effects doesn't actually use the transform of this object or the parent object or anything like that, right? If I move this as well, nothing happens. These coordinates over here, by default, are in world space. If we turn that off, now all of a sudden I can move this parent object around and the line works. Just something very important to keep in mind. Now, what's kind of interesting here is this line, let's go into rotation mode. Actually, this is, you can see as I'm rotating, like I'm just rotating around the y-axis, but it seems to be rotating in all kinds of weird and different ways. Let me cancel this rotation. And let me go into the move here, and I'm going to move it, oops, left and right. Actually, let me maximize this. I'm going to pull it to the left, and as we move it, you see it's like rotating. Now it's lying flat, and if I go over here, it's almost lying vertically. It's a little bit hard to see. I guess I can, like, I'm moving the camera around. Why is everything rotating? Well, the reason it's rotating is because this is a billboarded object. It's a sort of a quad, but it will always orient itself to show the flat part directly to the camera, which can look a little bit weird when you're looking at it like this, but it works really good for A, things that are instantaneous, and B, things that have a sort of a particle style shader applied to it, because then you get just sort of alpha blending, transparency, and soft edges, and it makes it really hard to tell that it's this flat billboard that is just facing towards the camera. But what it means is that it's got very simple geometry. All right, so let's figure this out. So we've got a sounds thing. Let's create a visuals. And we're going to take the sniper bullet effects. We'll make, we don't have to make it a prefab yet. Let's wait on that. But what we do want is a shader. So let's go ahead and create a new shader for the sniper bullet effects shader. It's going to take a second to do the initial render. And in our particle system, or line effects, it wants a material. Actually, it's not a shader that we want. Derp, derp. Get rid of that. Well, we might want one, but what we want is a material first. I don't think we'll need a custom shader. Let me try this again. Sniper, bullet, FX, material. Okay. So in our line effects, it wants a material. We're going to feed it in there. Great. Same thing as before. We don't have the crazy purpleness. The purpleness is the indicator that there's no valid material on this, so it renders in that purple or pink, I suppose it's, or fuchsia or magenta, I don't know. First thing we can see, it's leaving a shadow. We don't want that. We don't want to cast or receive shadows at all. Good. And now that's just the object here, but let's look at the material. It's just using a diffuse material. We want instead to use particles, additive. Now, oh, we probably want alpha blending. Oh no, there we go. We've got the transparency built in there. And that's what we want. We want something that's like kind of a little bit fuzzy on, you know, on the side. So this white stuff like this might actually be good for like a smoke trail. We don't want that. We want something maybe a little bit darker, a little bit grayer, hard to see there. Just like a faint sort of effect that might be indicative of some sort of disturbance. Let's go back to our line effects over here, our line renderer. And what kind of parameters can we tweak? How about the width and the start and end color? That's actually the other thing. This material over here, actually I should use solid white, because in the line effects we can change the start and end color in here. And the alphaness. So by default, it'll just use, I think multiplies with whatever you have as the base. If I go into my material and get the material to be kind of red, it'll use that and multiply it with the white to get the effect. So it's probably better, I think, for our material to be a solid white, and then for us to set things here. I suppose if you wanted to tint the entire color of things, if you want to, if you want to change the color entirely, use the material, but then use the start and end color to control maybe the alpha values. And what's cool about this is right now we just put in two positions, right? The start and the end. It's also got the, where's set the width? Oh, yeah, start and end width, which is far too big. Let's make it smaller. There we are. That's probably better. And let's add more points, because right now it's got 2. It's got a start and end. Let's give it 4. So now it's got a start, an end, and then some in-betweeny points. So let's go and, actually, I guess if we do 5, then we could do something like 2.5, 2.5, and, whoops, 0, 7.5, and 5. Now what's cool about this is you can throw some kinks in here. You get zigzaggy lines. You can make lightning effects. Do I actually want this? Sort of. How come I can't specify more colors? Probably the number of materials. There's a certain effect I'm trying to pull off. Because if we fade out the start and we fade out the end, yeah, it's completely invisible. I actually want... Actually, that doesn't work out too bad. Make the start completely visible, make the end kind of invisible. I was hoping to make the start and end a little bit fuzzy. You know what? Let's go back to just two positions, a start and an end, which is still set to 10 right now. All right, and have it fade out towards the target. Ooh, I like that, because we don't necessarily need a line the entire way. Not for this effect. We're not making a laser beam. We'll just have it come out of the gun and go out a certain distance forward, and then just fade out. Oh, that's good. I don't even know how long. We might not even want this very long at all. We might just want it like 1 meter out from the gun. Just some sort of visual effect that's going on. We can dabble with different things. But there we go. So right now we have a 10-meter long effect. We're going to want to make sure that if our target is less than 10 meters away, we'll want to scale it down. In fact, what I'll probably do is make this effect just a 1. And then what we'll do is we'll tweak the length of it from inside of our FX manager to be kind of appropriate. All right, there we go. So now we've got a line effect. This is all centered. Yeah, its origin is at 0, 0, 0, which is where that bit is. Okay, good. We'll also throw in a particle effect. So let's grab a particle system. Boom. And we'll make a relatively simple one right now. It'll be, well, first of all, very short duration. Like, we just want an instant puff of stuff. We want one burst of particles all at once. Simulate in world space. Oh, we can, there's a thing for that, isn't there? LineRenderer. Bursts. So if I turn this down to 0, and I make a burst at time 0 of 30 particles. There we go. Stop. Simulate. Boom. 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 All right, that's a start. Obviously, the effect is not correct overall, but we're a start. Lifetime, we can shrink down the lifetime of this to like a half a second and probably increase the speed, but we actually want to randomize the speed a fair bit as well. The cone is good. We want the cone to be much, much smaller. Boom. And the angle, I don't know if the angle is going to matter quite as much, but we do want a little bit more randomness over the spawn. So, start speed, curve random between two constants, probably something like that. Between 10 and 20. All right, that's good. Shrink the lifetime down a lot. Bam. Bam. Just this sudden puff of smoke. The lifetime, we'll probably want that to be switched around as well, so they don't all fight out simultaneously. Let's say between 0.05 and 0.15. It might look terrible. It might look awesome. We'll see what it looks like. Well, actually, yeah, we'll have to see what it looks like when we actually spawn it. How far is it going? Probably way too far, isn't it? That's not so bad. Now, we don't necessarily want a puff of smoke at this point. Now, there's all sorts of different things we can do with like particle systems. Ideally, I think we'd actually want 2. Oh, I put this on this. But what we probably want is a pair of particle systems. One for the smoke and one for the sparks. I'll just make the one sort of like sparky, fiery kind of one. Ah, that's no good. More see-through. I don't know. Like, should they be yellow sparks? Like metallic sparks? Should they be red? Maybe they should actually be relatively pale. Just a little... Excuse me, a little puff of colored smoke. You know what? We could mess around with this for like 3 days. Particle systems, to get them to look really good, are a big thing. In the asset store, there's lots and lots of pre-made particle effects and particle systems. We'll assume that we've done an awesome one now, and we'll call it good at that point. Now, one of the questions is, when we spawn this sniper bullet effects, how long does it stick around? Now, luckily, the particle system is a one-shot effect, boom, which is great. But the line definitely sticks around here. So there's a couple of different ways we can deal with this. We might want the line to fade out over time. But one of the problems is we don't want the line to just linger in the air, unless it's supposed to have a persistent smoke trail. But I don't think the sniper bullet makes a lot of sense for that, right? Again, the line might look something like this. I don't think this should stick around. It should just maybe flash there for, you know, a tenth of a second, a quarter of a second, and then poof away. So I like to have scripts that self-destruct objects. I don't have one yet? Really? Self-destruct. Boom. So this is just a simple script that I love. I use in all kinds of different programs. I use a public, float, self-destruct time. We'll have it default to 1 second. And then there's a couple of different ways to have this object destroy itself. One of the things you can do in the start is you can do something like destroy this game object. And then you can give it a certain amount of time, like that. So it will destroy itself in 1 second. I often don't use this, though, because this, I think this is in real time. I don't think it respects pausing. So instead, after using it in the start, I often like to do it in the update. And it doesn't have to be fixed update for this. I'm very happy to do it in the update, especially for visual things, which might have a very small self-destruct time. And what I'll do is self-destruct time minus equal time.delta time. If self-destruct time is less than or equal to 0, then right now destroy our game object, destroy ourselves. Okay? The reason I like to do it this way is because if you add in some pausing logic later, often you do that by manipulating the time.delta time, or you might have some sort of like, you know, game manager object and check to see, you know, is paused, some sort of thing like that, and then so only tweak the time if we're unpaused, little things like that. So I like to do it this way just because it future-proofs things a little bit. Now we should potentially check to see if we're an instanced network object, right? Let's remember here. If we go in health, do I have that set up the way I'm thinking? Yeah. If you recall our problem with our crate, instanced objects and objects that are instanced over the network. Basically, objects that were created with photon network.instantiate have to be destroyed in a different way than objects that were instantiated just using instantiate by itself. Stuff that exists locally on the computer, like what we're going to do here in our effects, we will just do instantiate. Because the idea is this RPC, that's weird, can't see my cursor. This RPC call is being executed. Do I have a stop? There we go. Is being executed locally on every single client. So we can just use instantiate to create a local object that just exists on this client. Now, every single client will happen to have a copy, but it's a private copy. It's not something that's synchronized over the network. There's no reason to waste network bandwidth synchronizing visual effects. You use one RPC that tells everyone, hey, make a bullet visual happen here, and then each client is responsible for maintaining its own. But conceivably, I might use this self-destruct script on stuff that is instantiated over network. So we'll do the same thing we've got in the health here. It checks to see, actually we should do it in a couple of different steps. We should check to see if whatever object has a photon view. So let's do that. Photon view PV equals get component photon view. Oops. If photon view not equals null and the photon view instantiation ID is not equal to 0, then we will do the networked destroy, which is this version. I really wish this destroy would have that logic inside of itself. And for all I know, they've updated photon network to do that. But as is, if you call photon network.destroy on something that wasn't instantiated over a network, it would give you an error. So only if photon view is not null and the instantiation ID is not 0, then we destroy the networked instantiated version. Otherwise, we use the local destroy, which is right here. There we are. Now everything will work groovy no matter what. So little simple self-destruct script. I'm going to throw this on my sniper bullet effects. And actually, where did I put it? I added the self-destruct script to the line effects. I might want to do that in that we might want to have the line and the particle system. Actually, that's probably okay. I'm going to have the line delete itself after like 1/10 of a second. The line effect will go away. But we're going to let the particle effect play out, which might take up to a second. It's a good question, actually. Let's... Bam. Oh, well, now I know what the lifespan is. The maximum lifespan is 0.15 seconds. So we're going to, on our simple bullet effects, we'll throw the self-destruct on here. And we'll tell it, we'll give it a margin of safety. We'll let it exist for 0.2 seconds. So after 0.1 seconds, the line effect will destroy itself. The particle system will basically play itself out in 0.15 seconds. And in 0.2 seconds, the whole sniper bullet effects object will just clean itself up and be gone. Now, creating and destroying objects like this all the time actually has a fair amount of overhead in Unity. And ultimately, you wouldn't want to have it just create or instantiate an object out of the middle of nowhere. You're going to want to use like object pools, but that's a little bit beyond these tutorials, so I'm going to leave it off there. Anyway, we have a sniper bullet effects now, which is great. We have the materials in there. Let me go and drop that in the visuals as a prefab. We're going to delete this. Then we're going to go back to our effects manager over here, and we'll create a new public game object, and it will be the sniper bullet effects prefab. And again, we may want the audio to be part of the prefab. Should I just do that? What happens when it destroys itself? Yeah, you know what? We probably do want to do that. Okay, let me get rid of this. We won't play the audio source that way. Instead, on our prefab, which is here, we're going to add an audio source. We're going to drop the clip in there, play on awake. Boom. Not looping. Excellent. Yeah, that's probably going to be a heck of a lot easier. So all we're doing here is we're instantiating the sniper bullet prefab. Where are we instantiating it? At the start position and with no rotation. Now, there are other ways of doing this. We could incorporate this into the firing animation. We could do all kinds of different stuff. This will work nicely in that if our shooting animation was longer, and actually for the sake of argument right now, in our line effects, yeah, so we've got a 10 length object, which we may not want after we instantiate the object. So this will return a game object. Sniper FX equals that. Now we actually have to cast it to game object because by default instantiate returns an object, not a game object. So we've got the sniper FX. Well, we can go this.transform.find and inside of this we're going to find the object called LineFX. Hard coding is not necessarily good, but in here, I mean, that's why I have this manager. There's just this one function that is responsible for calling this, so any logic can be put in here because what we want to do is we want to set the length of the line effects to be, well, what do we want? We could set this Z to be equal to the distance between the start position and end position. That way this line would actually stretch from the start to the end. Now, if we were using world space, we could actually set the coordinates of element 0 to be our start position and the coordinates of element 1 to be our end position. We can absolutely totally do that. It just depends on how you do the world space. So let's look at it for the sake of argument here. So we've got that find effects and then .get component LineRenderer. So LineRenderer equals that. So LR set position. It's got the indexes. So we can say 0, set it to start position. Hell, maybe we'll just do this. Depends on the effect that you want. And that's, I keep going back and forth on that. So this, if you've got it set to world space, this will make a line that starts from where we shot the gun. It'll end where it ended. And although, because our end color has an alpha set all the way to 0, it'll start to fade out halfway through. Actually, I bet you I'm going to really like this effect. What the hell? Let's try it. Now, if we weren't using world space, if you just wanted a line that is 10 meters long, but we wanted to make sure that if the target was closer than 10 meters, we didn't have a line that went through them, you could turn this off, and all you would be doing in the set position is we would be feeding it a vector, 0, 0, and then this last part, this Z, which is currently defaulting to 10, we'd actually want to scale to something like the distance between start position and end position, or something like that. But you know what? I'm actually going to quite like the start position, end position, use world space. Would this work as is? Can I test it right now? It's probably, I suspect it's going to look a little funky in first person view. Well, let's find out. Oh, we're crashing. Why is that? Or hanging or something. Something weird with my RPC? Again, only with the networking stuff have I ever found Unity to just sort of hang like this. The Windows problem reporting is kicking in. Go away, I don't want you. I wish you could just disable that outright. Come on, Unity, click in. Interestingly enough, my volume mixer is also not responding. Does it have something to do with the sound? Doesn't make any sense. Is there weirdness with the RPC? I'm hoping it kicks back in so we can give it another test here, but I may... Alright, let's end task. Watch my little drawing there. Let's bring this up again. Like, I'm always amazed when Unity actually crashes outright, because the crashing is really bizarre. Alright, tell you what. Let's do what we like to do here. I'm going to go back to commenting out everything that's going on in here. Hit play. Single player. Move. Shoot. Alright, hit the ground. Good. In our effect stuff, visuals, and bring this into the game world. And duplicate it. Rename it to 2. Okay, so now we have a number 2 prefab. I'm going to take this, I'm going to remove the audio source and the child objects. Hell, and this script. What the heck? And we're going to apply that. So Sniper Bullet FX2 is just an empty game object. So I'm going to remove that. And in my effects manager... Oh, I didn't have a prefab. Wait, why would it crash? Like, I forgot to drag it in there. But why would it, like, crash? It should just whine if I don't have this prefab. Well, let's check. If this not equals null, then spawn it and do things. Else, and we should put in some extra checks in there. Else debug.log error. This is missing. And then over here, if line not equals null, do this. Else debug.log error. Whoops. LineRenderer is missing. Okay. Which actually should fire off right now because we're giving it an empty game object here. So let's try this one more time. Single player. Shouldn't make a difference. Click. Just mirror that fire more than once, first of all. Oh, okay, well, it's complaining because it's trying to find the transform, and it's not finding that. But, okay, overall, that's fine. Let me switch back to Sniper Bullet Effects, the base one. Single player. Hey! Oh, my God. Okay, let's expand this. Find our player. Zoom in the game object. Just mirror the particle effect pointing the wrong way. Oh, it's because it's simulated in world space. Well, okay, so we've discovered a couple of things. First of all, I suspect the game volume is still too loud, and I apologize for that. So the line renderer is going out, but why can't we see it? Oh, there, see? If I click and then jump, or if I'm jumping while I shoot, then you can see it for a second. Why can we not see it? The reason is This line renderer is coming out directly from our camera and is that flat 2D plane. Oh god, I fell. And so we're seeing it exactly on edge, this two-dimensional object, which is why we can't actually see it. So we're gonna have to move our fire point to actually, come out of where our gun should be, which is not literally where our camera is, but instead will sort of where our gun will be. And right now we don't have that kind of gun positioning, so we'll have to figure out something for that. But if I do a build and run, play, get this guy connected. All right, turn him around like that, and then go in here and get this one started. Multiplayer. Actually, let me move the game window over to the other side. No, here's what we're gonna do. Hold on, I'll get this figured out. Maximize this. Bring this guy over here. Where's my opponent? There. Tab out. Good. So now, if I shoot from here, so I'm firing laser beams out of my head. The effect is not great, but it's clearly working. Well, the particle effects are always going the same direction though, so that's not good because they're not inheriting their rotation from their parent. Actually, no, that's why. Nah. Let me close the game. The reason is that when we spawn our sniper effects, we are not, we're just leaving it at the default rotation. We want it to rotate so that it's looking from here to there. Okay, well, that's easy. There's something called a look rotation. Which, yeah, that's the one I would need, because you can do also vector3.look. No? Look rotation, the forward, which is going to be the difference of the two. What? No, what is from to rotation? What is the thing I'm looking at? I'm thinking of unity from to rotation. Oh, it's because I'm putting no, we don't want that, do we? What is the difference from to rotation? Which one do I want? Or look rotation. I always get this mangled up. With the specified forward direction. Yeah, I guess we do want the look rotation. Yeah, we don't want a from to. And we want it to rotate in the direction that is the difference between these two positions. So end pause minus start pause. I always mangle this. It takes me like 3 tries to get it like vaguely correct. Single player. There we go. The firing particles are definitely going forward. They're wrong. And again, let me kill the sound here in my recording. There we go. So shouldn't be quite as loud anymore. The particles are definitely ejecting forward, but we've got to figure out our gun position at some point. I think what we'll do is kind of leave this as is for now, because we're going to want to introduce proper weapons later on. Weapons that we can swap in and out of, and weapons that are actually held in our hand. So right now, we're just going to laser beam out of our foreheads. And that'll have to be good enough. See you next time, folks. Bye-bye.